Erica, let's see what, as we're talking about the cost skyrocketing, right? 50% of America over the age of 85 is going to have some sort of cognitive issue that may take them 5 or 10 or 15 years in a facility. What pays for what? Does long-term care insurance pay for that? One. And two, what if I bought a long-term care policy 10 years ago that seemed like a pretty good deal at the time, but it's because they miscalculated how long I'm going to live? And that just like the actuaries that set up our Social Security system here in America, so did a lot of the actuaries in these big insurance companies and pension companies. You know, if there's one mistake that Congress has made, or anyone has made, it seems, in the last 20 or 30 years, if there's only one, and this really goes, this is a math mistake. It's the lack of accountability, understanding for how much longer we all live, period. And that's a really nice mistake to make because we're all living longer. But so many of the fundamental problems with Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and long-term care companies is that people are just living longer than we think, or at least the actuaries thought. What happens to MetLife and Genworth and Hartford, that the big players in the insurance space for long-term care? What if they can't? What if they can't deliver on their promises?
The first thing you're going to be seeing more and more of is long-term care policies have tremendous rate increases applied for every year. Commissioners of insurance in various states limit that to some extent. What we are seeing more of is not only the rate increases on existing plans, but new people coming into different carriers have dramatically higher rates than folks who've had the same coverage for some period of time. So that's where you're seeing it first.
But they still honor the old policies at lower rates.
Somewhat lower, but increasing. The problem.
Can they do that though? I mean, it's kind of like an annuity company. When you buy an annuity, right, you sign a contract because it's also an insurance policy. Yet the cover of the Wall Street Journal a couple months ago is talking about annuity companies coming back to their policyholders and now changing the rules.
Oh, no. I live in a world of health insurance, and what I can say that you guys cannot is I can guarantee you pricing goes up in healthcare. So that's a given. So contractually, there's nothing in there that says that the company cannot increase your rate. And most people who have these policies, one of the main problems with the pricing originally was not that people are living too long, but I think the actuaries used a life insurance model. And with life insurance, it's a certain amount of attrition. You have a life insurance policy with Prudential for X number of years, you pay your premium, and then at some point you go to a different carrier. Well, you don't get that money back. That's found money for Prudential in that case. Long-term care people don't drop it. They might add more with a different carrier, they might add a different style, but they don't drop this stuff. So we have no easy money, and that's a huge issue that people are not aware of. So what we are seeing is life insurance companies are very careful about supporting one another. Their big pride is they made it through the Depression and they helped us all, which is a great thing. So am I concerned that Genworth is suddenly going to fall out of their commitments? No. They will get bought by somebody else because there's always someone with a deep enough pocket that has a sense of responsibility to the industry, or a series of these companies. I'm not too concerned about that. I think we're going to get priced out of traditional long-term care.
Is there a way for, what about when you do a single pay? And this is something I rarely see ever happen because it's a big out-of-pocket expense.
Single pays are gone.
They don't even do them anymore.
10 pays are gone.
You can't even do a 10 pay anymore.
No.
So it's basically, let's just sign you up for the rest of your life, and we're just going to overcharge you at some point.
Well, treat it like health insurance. How many years do you pay premiums? I mean, we paid for 22 years on one of my children before he got cancer. Who would expect a 22-year-old to have cancer? But for 22 years, we paid on this kid and never had a claim. So it's the same thing. It's health insurance. And people tend to forget, they think it's something else, but it is purely health insurance. But what you're going to start seeing are life insurance companies now coming out with life insurance long-term care contracts, which are fundamentally more sound because we know if someone has a life insurance policy for whatever amount of money, that obligation is priced properly. Life insurance has been around for hundreds of years. If the carrier then adds it a long-term care rider, which simply says we are prepaying this amount of money that we are on risk for anyway, we're much more sound. So that's what I think is coming next. And it is coming, but I think more of it is going to be coming.
So we have a few questions here. actually 50. Do my best to get through these. And I think we have more coming, right? So if you didn't get a chance, just raise your hand. Matthew is right there. Kelsey's right over here. Kelly, just hand these in, and we will get started on these questions. So we've got another 30 minutes. We've got time. We rented out this building for a little while. So I want to, and I already apologized to a client of mine earlier that this was going to be a long forum. It's going to be an hour and a half long. And he said that he's used to 8-hour seminars at Georgia Tech, so he's fine with this for 90 minutes. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Well, let's go with these questions first. I was going to ask you about your kind of final, most important thoughts. Let's wait for that a little bit and go to some of these questions that are fairly rapid fire. So we're going to start with Sarah. Here we go. Okay, so this starts with Sarah. Where's the optimal place to have to keep these three documents so that they're available when they're needed and so your kids can find them?
That's the most important thing, that the agents know where they are. As far as the last will, a lot of people store them in a fireproof safe at home or in a safety deposit box at the bank. That's fine. If it's at the bank, you better make sure usually, your spouse might be your executor, but if something happens to both of you, your kid that's the backup can get there, that the bank will give them access, because if not, you got to go to probate court and get a court order. It's just another delay. For the healthcare directives, your physician should have them. I feel like the more likely it is, the more advanced your age is, or if you have a chronic health issue, the more likely it is that you have a health crisis, the more front and center that directive needs to be. I've had clients who we say, tape it to the fridge.
Tape your will to the fridge?
Tape your advanced directive for healthcare.
Definitely not your will. Talk about
that would be
to the fridge. Now imagine, let's go back to the Thanksgiving theme. You want to have a great Thanksgiving? We left Johnny out of the will. And it's on the fridge. Erica.
Great title for another book.
Is there, this is for Erica, so is there any information on supplemental policies being impacted by the Affordable Care Act?
Not immediately, but the time will come.
If I am healthy and no family history of any medical conditions, at what age should long-term care insurance be purchased? I'll go with Erica again on that one.
Yeah, I've always said late 40s you need to start looking at it because it's going to take you 10 years to make a decision. But it's true. But now, as I am seeing, and I do a lot of work with different financial planners, if you have someone in their 30s and they're buying life insurance, throw a little rider on it. It costs pennies. Might as well build it in now because it's just a prepayment or pre-access to your money. So you might as well throw it on.
This is another question that I have. This is kind of I don't know if you'll know the answer to this one. I'll blame it on someone in the audience. Well, let's say, and this is something that impacts our advisors all the time. Let's say the husband's 65 and the wife is 62, and there's a 3-year gap. And at some point, the wife had breast cancer, and it's fine, but she's a breast cancer survivor. And now the husband retires, and there's no more company or plan for the wife. In the past, that wife can't get coverage, right? You can't go buy a private policy if you are at risk. Like a bank won't make a loan to you if you don't have any money. A healthcare company won't give you coverage if you have a past condition or pre-existing. How will ACA change that realistically? Because this is real life stuff right now.
This is real life stuff for us between now and January 1st. We have folks who are on conversion contracts, came off COBRA, went on the conversion. Those are going away January 1st. Short terms are going away. Anything that's not Affordable Care Act compliant is going away, replaced by your choice of Affordable Care Act compliant plans. No medical questions, no pre-existing, immediate for maternity, where we have some young families that were not able to get maternity because it was not available on individual coverage. There are some people who will benefit from this change.
And it's that, so you do think that early retiree that could otherwise retire a year or so or two early to spend time
Can now finally
maybe
retire.
do that now.
Yeah, for the first time. And we have also, for how many years have people been locked into their employer because they have a family member who could not move and they were stuck with that health insurance? That's out now. Health insurance has been hooked into the strangest things over the years, and now it's going to be independent of that.
Because we haven't really witnessed this yet, let's fast forward to March or mid-year next year, and someone that, and I think of some child care providers that we've had over the years. One of the preschools that we've worked with, they don't offer health care insurance, and again, this is someone that's helped our family in kind of babysitting capacity, but has pre-diabetes, and she's never been able to get a policy and apply to Kaiser. She's going to be able to get a policy next year, correct?
January 1st.
No questions asked.
No questions asked.
But we don't know where the policy number will be as far as how much it's going to cost.
We do know where the numbers are. Almost all the companies have finally disclosed their rates and their plan designs, not all. But then we also get into the whole tax credit / subsidy issue. So we suddenly now have an opportunity for some of these folks who do not have coverage, who do not have high incomes, to be able to afford.
Where does she go, though? This is a clarification. If I were to have gone last year to Blue Cross Blue Shield and helped get her a policy, or Kaiser, and she's now going to Blue Cross or Blue Shield next year to get a policy, does that go through the exchange? The Georgia exchange set up federally, or does she go directly? Is there a difference?
There are two different things going on. Okay. If someone qualifies for the tax credit, which is being treated as a subsidy because it's meeting the premium dollars at the front end, then that individual needs to go through the public exchange. If that person, based on income levels, qualifies for an improvement of benefits subsidy, then definitely they need to go through the exchange. We have any number of clients who are saying we do not want to disclose our private information on a website that is questionably safe. We would
it's
prefer
fast, though.
Yeah. No, it's not even.
There's no waiting time on the website,
yeah,
I've heard.
There's no waiting time because you can't get in. But a lot of folks are starting on the private side with the thought of subsequent years going into the subsidy if it's still there. But it's the same plan designs, it's the same requirements, it's the same Affordable Care Act compliant plan design.
Okay, let's get back to these better questions from you, the audience. Are monies in a trust or trust account monies counted towards the Medicaid for long-term care basis?
What Medicaid cares about is what your access to it is. So a lot of people use, you might have heard the term revocable living trust. That means that it's a trust that you can revoke, but you put your money, your assets into it for estate planning purposes. It's revocable. You can take it back anytime.
So it counts. It counts as your money if you can get to it.
Yeah. On the other side of the coin, some people engage in planning where they give away their assets or try to get their assets out of their hands, and wait. There's a 5-year look back for Medicaid. You can't transfer assets within 5 years of applying for Medicaid or else they'll penalize you. So someone might say, okay, I don't think I'll need nursing home care for 7 years. So I transfer my funds to an irrevocable trust. I can't get it back, and I can't control when I get it. Depending on the terms of the trust, there's a lot of different variations, but that may not be counted against you.
Could you give a quick assessment of a qualified income trust? A quick assessment of a qualified income trust.
A qualified income trust is for Medicaid purposes.
These are all great topics for your elder care law blog, by the way. Thank you. Just so you know.
I mentioned that Medicaid looks at resources. I didn't mention income. Medicaid does look at income, and there's a cap at $2,130 of income for an individual. So it looks like they say, oh, well, if you're above that, you can't get Medicaid for nursing home care. But you can if you establish this qualified income trust and your income flows through it each month. It's really a purposeless thing, but it's a way for people who are over income for Medicaid to still qualify even though their income's higher. So it's basically a very limited purpose.
What kind of income counts to that, though? Or does any income source? Or
Everything.
Everything.
It's
Annuity
basically
income,
anything
pension
that comes
income.
into your hands.
What about required minimum distributions from an IRA?
That's income.
Okay, so that right there can exclude
Can
you
easily
pretty quickly.
put you over. So then an attorney would prepare a qualified income trust. It's a form. It's a very simple trust document. And each month your income would be transferred into the qualified income trust, out of the qualified income trust into the nursing home.
And that's legal?
It's legal. Federal
Okay.
law.
Okay. Or is that, what was your term again, Nancy, that we like so much? Virtually legal?
It is not therapeutic law.
Therapeutically legal? Okay. All right. Here's another question. If the Advanced Healthcare Directive was done in 2008, is it still good? And I think it's addressed another topic with all these rule changes. What's still good and what isn't, by the way. And then the will and the POA was done in 2013. Does it matter if they were done at separate times?
It does not. It does not. Advanced Healthcare Directive does not expire. None of those documents expire on their face unless, I guess they could say that they do, but most don't. Especially with the financial power of attorney, financial institutions do not like stale financial powers of attorney. It's just an added hurdle when it comes to dealing with a financial institution and getting them to accept it. So especially with older clients, to the extent they can, I like for them to have their financial powers of attorney redone every 2 or 3 years. Once incapacity becomes an issue, then you can't redo it.
Talk about a qualifying life event for a minute. A new child, a divorce. What does that do to, what does it do?
You absolutely need to look at your estate planning documents. It can revoke a will in whole or in part. There's some terminology you can put in a will to prevent that, but absolutely birth of a child, death of a beneficiary, death of a spouse, remarriage, moving from another state, a big change in wealth, an inheritance came in and now my financial situation is very different. All times to take a look at your will and go over whether you need to change or not.
All right, I have a long-term care policy that's unlimited. My concern is that will it stay affordable? And I guess no, we know that. Thank you. And how will we pay that? So I guess this question is really just about affordability. You've addressed this a little bit already, Erica. Is there any sort of ratio or limitation that they're held to each year for increases?
No, at one point, one of the carriers requested a 70% rate increase in Georgia. The commissioner gave them 20, but we knew the other 50 were coming. What we have seen and encourage people to do is when you start your long-term care policy, when you first get it, stretch as far as you can. Put in the highest compound interest that you can afford. Get it started because 5 years down the road, you're going to get a rate increase and you're going to look at it and say, okay, I am now going from $289 a month to $489 a month, whatever the number happens to be. If I now go out and try to get a fresh policy, it's $689 a month. When there was a set of numbers that we actually went through. But you then will look at your policy and say, okay, I've had it for 5 years. It's increased at 5% per year. Am I comfortable with that? Do I make reductions? Do I reduce the time frame of the benefit? Do I reduce the amount that we are insuring? Do I take off the compound features? If you've built it up enough, you will have that option, and it may be after 10 years that you do that. But the main thing, coming back to what you guys do, is this is not supposed to pay for your entire long-term care or chronic illness costs. This is in addition to Social Security, the money that these guys make sure that you have every month. This is a buffer. This is to get you in and comfortable. The most difficult thing, and I think you guys will agree with this, is making the decision to put mom or dad in the nursing home. If there are then financial considerations on top of all the battle and emotional scarring that's going on, if we can avoid that, that's what these policies really help with the most. And we personally went through that with my father. It was a horrible experience, but at least there were no financial issues. So, if for nothing else, that.
So the answer is there was really no easy answer. We don't know. Costs are just going up. But I think it's also an important point that it is a supplement, and and to some extent it is for your heirs because it's less money that gets depleted from your net worth that gets passed on. If that's important to you and your family, it's not necessarily important to everyone, but for some families it's extremely important. Next question. My mom is 97 years old and continues to drive. Should a motorcycle? That's got to come on. No, okay. Here's the real question: What is the liability of having a parent that is elderly and starting to have cognitive issues and continues to drive? Is there, if she has an accident, is there any sort of liability on the family? That's going to be Sarah and Nancy, maybe.
Not that I know of. I've had the question come up, and it's not really my practice area, so I, asked someone else who was more of an expert in that area. I think the liability really rests on the driver.
Although I've heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, I need to check this out myself, but I could swear somebody told me, some elder law attorney, but I'm not sure, that if the elder person has a certified diagnosis of dementia, and the family is aware, and they're still letting this person drive, they could be liable. But I'm not I'm not sure of that exactly, but that's what I threaten and say to people.
Pretty interesting point. And I wonder, though, in prudent planning in general, and Erica, you know about umbrella policies. That's the kind of thing an umbrella policy for a family could potentially cover.
Well, and never forget, anybody can sue anybody for anything. And you
Yeah,
have to
that's very
defend
much-
the suit. Yeah, so you got the financial issue and the emotional issue.
Okay. And again, umbrella policies are cheap, so it might be a good idea to have mom and dad make sure they maintain an umbrella policy, particularly if they continue to drive. It's tough to take away the keys. It's not an easy thing to do.
I'd advise at the least for the family to do whatever they can do to have the license revoked, letting the doctor know so the doctor can alert the DMV. So then at least the family can say, look, we did whatever we could do, but we couldn't physically stop her from
Because
driving.
if somebody gets killed, that's on your conscience forever.
Okay, so is a couple other thoughts. Let's continue with this rapid fire questions. By the way, we're 5:45, so we've got another maybe 10 to 15 minutes. If anybody's forgotten something and really, really wants to get it out, then I'll give you a chance to raise hands in a minute. But is the financial power of attorney the same as a durable POA? That's just a quick answer for Sarah.
Durable is really an adjective. It means that the financial power of attorney will survive incapacity. That means so I sign it while I have mental capacity, and then if I lose it, the financial power of attorney is still valid. And we draft all of them that way to be durable.
I worked with an elder care attorney 5 years ago to plan for myself. How should I review my plan and documents that are in place now that I'm 64?
You go back and you look and you make sure that all of your designations of fiduciaries are still appropriate. That's your executors or your trustees. You basically go back and you make sure that everything fits as far as you're concerned. And if you want to, you go back and sit down with your advisor and go over everything with them as well.
Let's talk. This is going to be directed to Nancy. Impaired parent with will, one sibling managing finances and refusing oversight. What happens after death? Does probate call for examining the books? What rights outside of litigation do other inheritors have? And again, we see this more than you might think.
I sent them to her.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that might be Sarah.
I mentioned, I think, to Nancy when we were chatting earlier that we have seen a real uptick in probate and estate litigation, and that's exactly that kind of scenario. People either fighting over the validity of a will or trust, or fighting against the fiduciary, the trustee, or the executor. In Georgia, the default is that the executor of a will has to file with the court regular accountings, but most wills waive that. So they don't have to file with the court, but they're obligated to provide the beneficiaries with some kind of regular accounting of what they're doing. So usually it's a matter of just waiting patiently for a certain amount of time and then making your demand. Accomplishing that outside of litigation is sometimes possible and sometimes not.
It's a long process. It's a multi-month, 6-month process easily.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, estates can go on. The estate administration process can easily go on for years if there are issues, if family members aren't getting along.
In a family with 4 children, one child has the POA, this is the situation, does that child have all the power, or can the other 3 children override the decisions made by the one child with the POA? They're getting tougher. This is like the end of Jeopardy. It gets harder.
This is a law school exam. The person with the financial power of attorney, the agent, is the only person with any legal authority, unless you're named on an account separately, if you're a joint owner of an account, and that's another litigation issue that arises where either there's maybe there's not necessarily something going on, but there are secrets and there's mistrust, and these are situations that worst case scenario end up in the probate court, where we're saying, mom may not have the capacity to sign any more powers of attorney, but we don't trust this agent, and so we need to get a conservatorship and see what's going on.
I think that question then gets back to Nancy's area of expertise, which is trying to get the family to communicate and to coordinate. And I know that's hard, but we had talked a while back about the refusal of a parent, but then you've got the worry about siblings disagreeing. And we've got cases that we're dealing with now as a firm where a sibling that we didn't even know in another state comes in and starts to contest. And we've seen an uptick in this too, but how does a family, how many people do what you do, Nancy, that help try to coordinate everybody so that everybody gets along, or is that just not realistic in America?
I don't think there's anybody that can make people get along. But there are people you want to find somebody that has family systems background, hopefully a psychologist, social worker that can help, that really understands family dynamics, or look for a family mediator. Sometimes that can be helpful. And really and truly, you need to start talking about this stuff way in advance. I mean, you need to, those of you that have kids that are in their 30s and 40s, talk to them now. Tell them what you want and what you don't want, and don't wait. I mean, it's kind of, the longer you wait, and that's where we see a lot of the problems.
How does Obamacare impact long-term care insurance? Can I get a long-term care insurance policy if I've had cancer and I'm in remission and there seems to be dishonest and unscrupulous long-term care insurance companies? How can I avoid all this?
Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, as I call it, for a brief period of time had some long-term care provision out there that you could get $50 a day, but you had to keep the policy in force for 5 years, and you couldn't have a lapse. It has nothing to do with long-term care, unfortunately or fortunately. Long-term care falls under the regular rules of insurance. If you have had medical conditions, be prepared to have tremendous difficulty getting the coverage. If you are with a less than scrupulous company, take a look around real quick, see if you can make a change, see if that company has been, and good companies have been bought by less scrupulous companies, and that's unfortunately a fact of life.
Don't you look at AAA, and I mean, there's certain companies that have a better reputation and don't, or not anymore?
Well, reputation is a funny thing. Some of the companies with some of the worst financials have the biggest ethics I've ever seen, and some of the companies with the